Check. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Woke you up, didn't I? All right, hey, thanks for coming. So if you thought this was going to be the screening, that is actually tomorrow. We're doing a screening for a film that I shot, and we can talk about that a little bit later because we do have time in here, and I'm going to need to stretch it. But yeah, thanks for coming. Did you guys already spend all your money? No? No? Okay, all right. You guys are the smart ones. I know, you haven't been to my table like you have. You bought like 7 CDs or whatever it was. 10 CDs, oh yeah, that's a lot of CDs. Good, yeah, they came in and I was like, sweet, people might get it before Christmas. Yeah, so the band, we were I Shine, now we're Where Giants Fall. We've got a new album out. We brought a few with us. We are not ordering more, so if you get it, that's it. That'd be awesome. And some of you already have it and got it coming, so that's great. It's a bummer. We tried to send some to Australia and New Zealand, but they've got some COVID restrictions. And they wanted to charge us an extra $70 to send to Australia and New Zealand. Stinks. And so we had to refund those orders. That was a bit of a bummer. Because it doesn't make sense. I'm like, it's just a CD. We're not sending COVID in an envelope. But they're very restrictive there, unfortunately. So you guys doing good? All right, so since this is a Q&A, you guys, it's great to see some familiar faces here. This is mine. Yeah, I gotta be careful, huh? Actually, I'm gonna be fine. This doesn't really even do anything, so I can breathe right through here. See this gap? So, what do you guys want to talk about? Q&A time. You guys have questions, I have answers. To life, no, but I just have answers. So let's start there. What's your first question? Who am I? I am Johnny Yong Bosch. I started out as a Power Ranger. I was a Black Ranger, Adam, who then became a Green Ranger and Zeo and then Turbo, and then I was replaced. And found out in a very strange way. We found out in the newspaper that they were replacing us. It was really strange. And then actually after that, I had a couple years where I couldn't find a job, and I started a band called I Shine, and that became a thing for a while. And then I stumbled into voiceover, and I have made a career out of that somehow. And then I Shine became Where Giants Fall whenever we kept having to change out drummers and bassists, and it was like, it's always just me and Polo now, so let's just do our own thing and change the name and maybe slightly change up our style. And so, yeah, so that's what we've been up to. Shot a film, I'll just go ahead and talk about that. The film is called Arc Exodus. In 2019, me and another friend of mine, we were like, he wanted to really shoot a movie, and I said, all right, let's shoot a movie. How about that movie I wrote in 2015? He was like, all right, let's do that movie. So in 2019, prepped and planned for about 10 months to shoot this film. We were going to shoot it in Texas, where he had connections I did not. And so I was like, all right, sweet, let's shoot it in Texas. And then 1 week before, he couldn't do it anymore, and it kind of fell through. But my money was already tied up into this film, so I had no choice. I already paid for actors and locations and wardrobe and props and stuff like that. So I was like, well, I paid for it, so we can't do this movie. Let's just make up a whole new movie. In 1 week, we'll rewrite something else. And so I rewrote a new story and started talking to another friend of mine, Kyle Higgins, who wrote like Power Rangers Shattered Grid stuff. And he was like, hey, how about instead of this, we make it sci-fi? And I was like, all right, sci-fi it is. And then we went off and shot a sci-fi film. And so that's what we're going to show tomorrow. It's called Arc Exodus. You could watch it tonight if you want, to go to our website, voxrocketstudio.com, and there's a link there. If you aren't able to check it out tonight, you just have to punch in the password, which is Skull right now. Which another actor in there is Jason Arby, who played Skull in Power Rangers. So you punch in Skull, that's the password. It'll be that password for at least the rest of this year. It might change eventually. We have pulled it down off of YouTube and Vimeo because we have some distribution opportunities with Warner. We just won this thing with Warner, so we're kind of waiting to talk to them about that and deciding really where we're going to go with it. But you can check it out if you want. We also are, again, just screening it tomorrow. We can talk about it a bit more there. We can talk about it now if you've already seen it, or whatever. We can talk about whatever you guys want. We have an hour and a half in here, so I need you guys to help me fill this out. It's a two-way conversation. Yes. Try Again. I loved it too. It's one of my favorites for sure. Boy, there was one time where I was in the studio working on this project, and then I was called into the office, and I was like, what, am I in trouble? And they're like, hey, so we wanted to talk to you about another show. And I was like, okay, and to see if you would be interested. And I was like, if it's hentai, no, I don't want to do it. And she was like, no, it's not hentai, but there's some things in it, that are maybe questionable or whatever. And I was like, well, if it's not hentai, I'm fine, let's do it. But then there were some things in it. What's it called? Dokuro-chan, I think it was called. Who's seen that one? I think that's what it's called, right? Where there's a dog that, it doesn't show anything, but a dog jumps on him. Yeah, and there's an octopus in there somewhere as well. That's all I can say. Wendy was directing me, and I was like, hey, Wendy, what is that octopus doing? And she's like, uh-huh. I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. So that was the first one where I was like, boy, I don't know how I feel about this. It was kind of making fun of that sort of stuff, though, so it wasn't the same, but I guess it was more silliness rather than anything else. But good times. Yeah. Not one where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I did work on another thing, Fate Stay Zero, where I play Ryunosuke. He's like this child killer, and that one kind of bothered me a little bit because I had just had a child. And when you have kids, it's very difficult for you to see a child be hurt or whatever and things. It's a weird, strange psychological thing because you just attach that to your own child, especially if you're an actor, because you try to find a way to relate to the character, and it's like, wait a minute. So I did have trouble with that as well, but I still did it. Other questions? Yes. Was it hard to transition from live action to voiceover? Well, it wasn't like immediately. From Power Rangers on that show, I was fortunate to get to that show. But after that show, it was really hard for me to get a job, for a number of reasons. Back then, there just weren't roles for half Asian guys. And so everything I would be sent out on was like Chinese guy, or Caucasian. And so if I walk in there and there's somebody else, that's actually full Asian, I just don't look the part, and it was really, really hard for me to get a job. And also Power Rangers was kind of frowned upon in the industry for a number of different reasons, because it was a cheesy kids show, because it was non-union, and so if they saw that on the resume, then they were just not interested. So it was hard, I couldn't get a job. It was like 2 years where I didn't have, I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. Virtually home, I was living with whoever would let me live with them. I had a busted cot, two trash bags full of clothes, and a guitar. And so that's when I started to learn how to play the guitar. And that kind of brought me out of this depression I was falling into. Started learning how to sing and play, and that's when I started my band, I Shine. And that kind of, I was like, well, maybe this is the thing I'm gonna do. But then the stunt guys, the Japanese stunt team from Power Rangers wanted to do an action film. They cast me as the lead because I could do my own stunts. And then as I was, okay, so the camera that they used was Japanese, but the sound equipment wasn't, so somehow it didn't work. And so I had to dub myself for the movie, the entire thing. And as I was dubbing myself for that movie, producer walked in, heard my voice, and thought I had a decent hero voice, asked me to come audition for some animation. I booked Trigun. And that was like the first thing that opened the door. And then it was like, hey, we heard you on Trigun, we want you to come audition for this. And hey, we heard you in that, we want you to... And it just became a thing, and I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't matter what I look like. This could be my new thing. I can still act, but you know, it's like... And so that became the thing I really kind of focused on for a while. I mean, I did a number of other things. I was like a personal trainer here and there. You know, I painted somebody's house every once in a while. So I just did whatever I could to survive until, you know, voiceover became like, oh, this is really something I can, you know, make a career out of. But it took a long time. So it wasn't an easy transition. It was just a total fluke, you know. If the sound guys didn't screw that up, they didn't screw it up. It just didn't work. I say that they screwed it up, but yes, I'm thankful that it didn't work out. I'm glad the audio didn't work out and I had to dub myself. It's really strange, but yes. Yes. What Trigun episode? There were a lot of them that I really liked. First one was pretty fun. But I mean, the one that sticks in my head, of course, is Love and Peace! You know, saying that like 1,000 times was a lot of fun. Yeah? Did you like that one? Yeah? No? Maybe? Yes? Did you forget as you stood up? Isaiah? Oh, Isaiah was fun. Humans are so interesting. He was a great character. He was super fun to play. I just loved the way, I mean, he was a different character for me, you know? He manipulated people and situations, and he just had fun with that, you know? And it was an interesting and new character for me, and just made it a lot of fun to play. Somewhat villainous, you know? Yeah, and I liked the relationship with Shizu-chan. Also a lot of fun. And he looked cool. I want more of that one though. Do-da-da-da, which is a strange name for a show. Do-da-da-da. I was told this by one of the producers, and I don't know if this is accurate, but I was like, what is this name? Why did they name it this? And so they told me that when they were trying to come up with a name, they wanted like a certain amount of syllables or whatever. It was like, you know, like da-da-da-da. And then they kept saying, you know, da-da-da-da, whatever. And they were like, what about da-da-da-da? And then that's what it became, which I found interesting. Funny. Did you guys know that? Did you know that from me? Oh, okay. I already told that story. Yes. Oh, well, yeah, COVID made things very complicated. So I shot this movie in January 2020, right? And then COVID happened, and the world locked down, or at least my world did, and I didn't have a job, so I basically was like, well, I gotta finish this movie, so I edited the movie. I was supposed to have a guy do this visual effects for me, but you know, he was moving because of COVID, so I thought I'd tinker with it. And then as I was tinkering with it, I was like, you know what, I might be able to do this. So I spent 3 months teaching myself how to do visual effects. So I did that in the movie. And then while I was there, I was like, hey, you know what, I might as well score the thing. You know, I got a band, we could score it. So we scored the movie. And as we were doing all of that stuff, we had been sitting on, I mean, we have plenty of songs, because we've, what has it been, 3 years now, I think? Since, you know, I Shine, actually it's longer than that, you know, since I Shine had ended and we started up Where Giants Fall. And so we were in the studio, we recorded quite a few songs. None of those are on the album. And then we had tracked quite a few more, and then of course the ones that are on the album right now. The vocals were never finished. I had like melodies and riffs and things, and I still do, like a bunch, like I was listening to our B-sides, the stuff that I was like, oh, maybe we'll just put this stuff out later. But as I was going through it, I was like, you know what, this is good enough for a whole new album. Because I wasn't really sure how people would receive this first album, you know, because it's a little different from My Shine, not completely, but it's still a little different. So I was like, let's test the waters with this. But it was received fairly well. So, but again, it was during COVID, I just had the time where I was like, well, I guess as soon as this film is done, we'll finish up the album. And so I finished up the album, and then, you know, we're just one after another, a number of other things, shot a few other things that hopefully here pretty soon we're going to be able to show. But Arc Exodus is the one thing that we're showing right now, and then of course our band thing is going on. People have asked to have like the score as well, but that's just, we'd have to go back through that. We are doing a 5.1 mix on the film. Right now it's just stereo, but we will do a 5.1 mix. We're adding a few more Easter eggs throughout there. So there's about 13 now, but we're going to add quite a few more. Narvi has some he wants hidden in there. Polos, he's going to want some stuff in there. A beanie or something. We'll have some more stuff to add, just for fun, you know. And we're talking about potentially shooting a few more scenes because it was a rush job. It wasn't like we had any rehearsal or plan for that film. It was like, what do we shoot tomorrow? Okay, let's go to Home Depot and build that portal. So it's like every single day it was like, we need to make this for tomorrow. And even during the day, I would show up and I'd be like, oh, they didn't build the portal we needed. Great, okay, I'm gonna spend two hours this morning building this so that we can start shooting. Every day was like that. It was pretty crazy. Hardest thing I've ever worked on. But at the end of the day, we had finished something that had somewhat of a cohesive story. You know, is it perfect? No, but it's like something's there, and we feel like we can build on that. We're tossing back and forth the idea. Who's seen this film, actually? Okay, so it's, two of you. All right, so you guys are like, what are you talking about, Johnny? You can watch it tomorrow, or you can watch it tonight, whatever you want. But yeah, so there's a lot about it. You should come check it out just to see. It's as if you got together with a bunch of your friends and you were like, hey, you want to shoot something tomorrow? And you guys are like, yeah, all right, what are we gonna do? I don't know, let's make it up. That's what it was. So we have a 40-minute, like, made up film. And so when we finished it, we were like, do we keep, like, because it's 40 minutes, we're like, well, do we add more to it or reshoot some of the things we don't like? Like, what do we do? Do we make it a movie or do we do a series? So right now we were bouncing that back and forth, and now we're like, you know what we shot feels like episode 8. So maybe we should go do 1 through 7, and then we can tighten up 8 when we know exactly what the story is. So we have a lot of story now. We've built the world. We're most likely going to do a comic. Now the comic might not take place at the same time as this film. It may take place years later, like this is the start of a revolution. And so we'll see. There's quite a few things we're going to do with it. And again, none of you have seen it, so you have no idea what I'm talking about. 1, 2, 3, 3 people, 4 people saw it. Okay, great. That's about accurate. We're not gonna put it back up on YouTube because YouTube compresses the quality so much. We're just gonna leave it on Vimeo for now, and if people want to see it, we'll just have the password. Like at every con, I'll reveal the password if I'm not showing it, and then you can go check it out. We want people to enjoy it. We hope people enjoy it. All right, you guys are ready to talk about some anime now, so let's talk about anime. What do you want to know? December 18th. There's an announcement. I don't know what it is. People think I know what it is. I don't know what it is. I know it's about Bleach. Thank you. I hope that I get to come back as Ichigo. That's all I'm saying. I hope they're like, hey, we're done. And we're going to go get the English people to have them work on it. I would think that I would know by now, but I don't know. So I'm curious what they're going to say. They might be like, hey, next summer. Yes. Do you know? Do you have an answer? You don't? Okay, go ahead. You have a question? Did he just take your question? Wow. All right, go ahead. I mean, you guys, I don't want you guys to fight. How about I'll answer yours and then I'll answer yours. Okay, go. The fan animated 1,000-Year Blood War, yeah. Was we what? No, but he did stop. Okay, so there was a fan animated Thousand Year Blood War, and because I thought Bleach was done, I offered my voice, for free to just be able to do that because I thought, hey, maybe the fans want to see this. And so we did that first episode. He was working really hard to get the second one done, but then they made the announcement that they were going to work on or continuing Bleach, and so I think he felt like, well, goodness. It takes a lot of time, and it's just him doing it, so I think, he kind of just stopped, and I don't think that's happening now. And I had a couple other things, too, that people have asked me to do, like death battles and this and that. And so at this point, in fact, there's one that I'm supposed to do, but I'm not sure if I should yet. Because I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get myself in trouble now, because things might actually come back. So, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I mean, I wouldn't tell you guys. No, you guys, jokes. You guys got jokes, huh? You guys like, it's like I was about to reveal the secret, and they're like, no. No, I don't know any secrets yet. I haven't worked on it. You know how I am. I couldn't say it anyways, but I'm not. Just trust my eyes, and I'm telling you the truth, that I have no idea what they're going to announce December 18th. You guys don't believe me. All right, go ahead. What's your question? Okay, so you saw an interview about when Polo and I met and we were rapping. Yeah, so in case you don't know, I don't rap. I'm not a rapper. You can buy our CD, believe me, I'm not rapping in it. Although there's a song that we might release next time that does have some rapping. But I don't know if I'm going to do the rapping. I might try, just to see, why not? Yeah, okay, so we were so Maurice, who was my drummer back then, and we were in an acoustic set in Idaho. Did they try it out? Check. The battery does look like it's on one last thing. It's last thinging. But yeah, so in Idaho, I was doing an acoustic set with Maurice, who was my drummer, and Polo was doing an acoustic set with another, another vocalist, right? And so he was playing the guitar for her, and I don't know if I should tell the story like this. I'm trying to decide. It might make me look bad. But anyway, so she was kind of a diva, sort of. Okay, I'm not saying she was a diva. I'm just saying I really got diva vibes from her, right? And so I'm sitting in the back seat. She's next to me. Polo's in the back, and then Maurice is in the front seat, and they're driving us to the hotel. And she's got her bag right here between us. Well, thank you. That's Polo, by the way. Polo's got a DJ set tonight at 9:30, so make sure you guys run over here. He's going to be playing some music. And so yeah, we're there, and then we pull up to the hotel, and then I get out, and I open the door, and I'm like, is it me? Is there a compressor on this? A gate. Is there a gate on this? No? All right. And so I turn back, I don't know if she needs a hand out or whatever, so I help her out, right? And I offer my hand to help her out, because I'm getting these diva vibes, right? So I at least do that. And then she does one of these things. As she gets out, she looks at me, and then she looks at her bag, and then she looks at me, and she's like this, and gives me the head nod of will you get my bag? And I was like, I'm not going to get your bag. I'm like, nah, you can get that. And then I walked away, because I don't know, that's where I drew the line. I was like, if she didn't do one of these like that, then I probably would have got her back. But she did that, you should get my bag. I was like, no, I don't do that. And so I didn't. and then later, Polo had a falling out, some disagreement with her or whatever. And me and Maurice were sitting, we're hanging out. I think we were just hanging out in the bar or whatever. And then Polo comes up and he's like, hey, you're that guy. I've never seen anyone do that to her before. And I was like, I just felt weird being told what to do. And I'm not her slave, so it was not right. And so, anyways, Maurice and I, we were like, hey, we just met some Indian guy that's got like this Indian restaurant. He seems super cool. We're gonna go hang out with him for a little bit. And some guy that we just met. And then we were like, why don't you tag along? He's like, all right. And this guy, Danesh, he's a really cool guy, but he knew everybody in Idaho. Like, he was the man. And we were like going to all these places and these clubs and whatnot. And I don't do clubs, but we go to a club and there's like a table, like one of those special tables, you know, like you hear about that you've never been to, right? That people probably paid a lot of money to sit at. And there's like all these girls there. And it was funny because they got, like, the security brought us up to this table and they're like, all right, ladies, get out of here. And then Maurice was like, wait, no, you don't have to make them get, and they all were leaving and we're like, then it's just like us sitting at the table, like all very awkward. We're like, all right, cool, but it was fun. Took us all around. And then he was like, hey, I got a studio. It's like, whoa, you got a studio? All right, let's go to your studio. And it was like underground. It's like, I felt like I was like, we were like Ninja Turtles going through sewers, and then, because I was like, where are we? And then, yeah, like, there's this studio. We ended up in a booth in this room where he had like this room where he was like able to record and track. He's like, oh yeah, and he starts playing us a beat. And we started rapping. And I don't rap. And yeah, Poe didn't speak very good English. So, for all I know, he was just like, you know, just saying random stuff in Japanese, which he probably was. But yeah, and he posted it online. I don't think you can see it. No, because as soon as Maurice saw it, he was like, take that down, please. Please take that down. Nobody's gonna ever want to watch us or hear us again if they think this is the kind of music we do. Yeah, so we're not rappers. We found out. We found out that moment that we were not rappers. Oh, totally freestyle. Yeah, I know, it's pretty scary, right? Can you imagine? But the funny thing is, that's where I kind of came up with, like, I don't know if you've seen us before, but we'd bring a guitar with us. We do like a musical Q&A, so you guys would ask us questions and we would just improv a song back to you in answers. So that's really kind of the birth of that. That's where that came from. It was like, hey, we can freestyle, and, you know. But we can freestyle if we're not rapping, okay? That's a really random story. I'm glad I shared that. Nobody's recording, right? Okay, good. All right. Yes. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's actually a lot of songs on our album that I had sat on for quite a while, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to finish. Battles is one of them. Battles from our new album, one that I sat on forever, that I just wasn't sure about. There's quite a few of them that are on the album that I was like, I don't know, let's just see if people like it. Battles is one of them. Young and Fearless is another one that I was like, I don't know, this might be weird for people. What's the other one? Crazy World is another one that, you know, once I did it, I was like, this feels too different. Like, this one feels like something that, you know, we would never play, or we had never, not a style we played before ever, you know? And I sent it to Polo. I was like, I came up with lyrics for it, but I'm not sure. And he was like, yeah, it sounds good, let's do it. So there's a couple of them like that. There's still quite a few. There's a few that I have from many years ago, from old iShine days. You know, there are songs that we wrote like in the very first album, the very first recording we ever did, you know, that we burned some of the CDs because we used to give them out whenever we were playing like random shows on the street or whatever. I remember a song called Bad Dog. That'll probably never be out there. It's a fun song, but it's just stupid. And then it was, you know, and it's one of those things where like you go back and you think, I'm gonna revisit that, but change the lyrics, you know, because it has a cool melody or it has a cool guitar thing. That happens a lot. It does happen. I have hundreds of songs that are like that, literally. But I have at least 20 of them that we have recorded that were going to be like our album for Where Giants Fall, that are just kind of like, we did them, and then I was like, it feels like action. Or this one, I don't know about that chorus, or I don't know about this verse or whatnot. And I just, after we released this album, I went back through just to check and see what I had, because my computer crashed, and I thought I lost a bunch of songs, but I had a bunch of the recordings, just not the full mixes. And a few of those I'm like, well, that's kind of a bummer, because that's actually a pretty good song. So there's a few of those that we might just revisit and then re-record and retrack and put out, but for sure. When you write music, though, there's a lot of that, because you're growing at the same time, And also, I was trying to find a new sound, but I knew I wasn't going to make like a completely new sound, but I just wanted it to be new for us and something different for me, a different way of writing songs. And I prefer the songs that come to me in my dreams, because I usually feel like those have better connection to people for whatever reason. And so about 80% of the songs that are on the album are songs that were, that came to me in dreams in different parts and ended up over many years becoming a complete song. How many of you write music? All right, so you know what I'm talking about, right? If you've been writing for a while, if you've been writing long enough, you start dreaming that stuff, And if you play an instrument, you occasionally will dream, the chord progression or whatever, or you'll have like a string of lyrics just come to you, and then you're like, is that from me? Where's that coming from? And then you wake up, and you try to write it down or hum it into your phone or your recorder before you forget it. I feel like those end up, if you don't forget, those end up being some of the best songs. Yes? Not at all. I didn't even think about the voice acting. When I was younger, I was just like, oh, I like this cartoon, but I had like Tom and Jerry, and eventually Batman, and Batman was like, this is a cool cartoon. So yeah, I really didn't think about it. It wasn't until much later, and I wasn't really, even on Power Rangers, I wasn't an actor. I was a martial artist who was acting. And even that I didn't take serious until much later, towards the end of my time there on Power Rangers, where I was like, I should really be thinking about the acting part of this. It really wasn't until really, truly just doing voiceover where I really honed my skills as an actor and realized how far you can take a character. For me, it's just, my main goal in anything that I do is just trying to be true to that character in that world. As long as I'm true to that character, as long as I believe myself in this character, then you might believe that I'm this character, Like I can't phone it in, My screams have to hurt in order for you to know that, or for it to feel real to you. So that's all I want, is for it to feel real. Other voice actors are obviously, they're better than me, and they know other ways of doing it that are more practical. An example would be, especially the first season of Iron-Blooded Orphans when I voiced Orga. Orga was a character that is not a character I would usually get cast for, but it was one, because I had auditioned for Mika, right, and other characters in that. And then they said, well, we want you to play Orga. And then when I listened to Orga in the Japanese, I was like, not a character I typically get cast as, but I'm going to try it. So what I did was, and it felt like, this guy's been at war forever, he's seen war and battles and whatnot, and he's probably shouting all the time. And so that's what I did when I drove to work. So I'd shout out and scream every street sign and name that I saw. And so whenever I got into the booth, I just sounded a little more rough, It's not something maybe that you hear immediately, but it might be something you pick up on, Which is a stupid idea as a voice actor, because it could blow my voice out, But I just thought, I'm going to put myself there and see, because this is what I felt was right to that character, Because then I could believe I'm having to force myself through this thing that I've done to myself to make it sound right. And so then you know, with that, you might believe it. You might have a hint of that come through, you know? But not wise. I'm sure there are better ways of doing it, but that's just what I chose to do for that character. Yeah, so I really, I don't really have, now I respect everyone, you know, like for instance, I've been watching Demon Slayer with my daughter who loves Demon Slayer. Like she has a bunch of friends that watch it, you know, and she's like, I want to watch it before they really ruin it for me. And I was like, all right, sure. And I started watching, I'm like, first off, the animation is beautiful. You know, I love the character design and the colors, and everyone's great in it, you know, and everyone sounds awesome. Bryce, I was like, oh my goodness, how do you do that voice without hurting yourself? Same thing, you know, he's being that character. All those people are being those characters, you know. But it's funny, she really likes Nezuko, right? That's her favorite character, is Abby. And I'm like, yeah, but what about that Gyu guy? She's like, with that guy in the back? Yeah, that guy. He's kind of cool, right? She's like, he's all right. Okay. So what's your favorite character? Nezuko? Okay, all right. But hey, that's the way it is. I tried to get her to watch a bunch of the other anime that I'm in. She doesn't get into it. I'm like, dang it. I know, right? Actually, I hadn't tried Sailor Moon. But see, but it's a little older too, though. Because I tried to get her started. I was like, you know what? Maybe she'll like Trigun. They did do, well, oh no, you're right. They did recolor it, so it's probably better. Whereas they didn't really do that, I don't think, with Trigun. Because every once in a while when I was watching Trigun on Hulu, it's like that. It's like, is this off of VHS or something? What's going on? But I don't know, I was just trying somewhere and then I gave in to Demon Slayer. It's pretty good. It's good. It is good though. I do like it. And I like my character. He's alright. I think he's cool. Yes. I'm not playing this weekend. I know. People are upset. We weren't really sure how things were here, you know? Like, we're still trying to ride out the COVID thing. Like, what's it like here? You know, and you go somewhere else and it's like, no, you can't do anything like that. So now we know, like, you know, we get here and they're like, why didn't you guys play this year? I'm like, I didn't know that we could do a thing for real. But then I also have to, like, I have to bring in a whole new crew, you know? Well, Riley still wants to, you know, play drums. He hit us up, you know, recently, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So we are gonna do, we just agreed to do Anime Blues Con. That's probably gonna be the first show that we do. And then we will be back next year to do a set, you know, hopefully with a couple other albums behind us. So we'll see. Yeah, we're probably gonna turn around another album here pretty quickly. The album is digital, yes, except for Apple Music and iTunes. Now, it is going to be there. In fact, I just got an email because our distributor somehow screwed up, and there was like a delivery error. And I had noticed it when I looked it up here recently. I was like, hey, wait a second, there's an error. That's why it's not up there. And so, but the problem is they don't answer, there's not a phone. Like, I can't talk to them. See, they just sent me a thing that they put a priority on it to get it fixed immediately. You know, because I was like, yo, it's been out, fans are asking for it, and you guys are ruining it for us and making us look bad by not putting it up there. So it's on there now. That's funny, I just got the email today that they made it a priority to get it on there, so. All right, well, never mind, I take it back. It's on everywhere digitally, so you should be able to get it anywhere. There are free sites as well, or if you're paying for a streaming something or other, you can find it there too. I just found out that it's in, like, on TikTok stuff too. Yeah, like I'm new to TikTok, I just joined, and so I really don't know what the heck I'm doing. But I found there's a place somebody showed me where you can like look up music and add music to it. So if you're on TikTok, you can use our music and help us promote a little bit. Yeah. TikTok's a little weird. I am a little weird. I'm a lot of weird. But TikTok, like whenever I go on, like as soon as I open it, it's like people dancing, you know? And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. That just seems strange, you know? It just seems weird. Nobody will see me dancing. Maybe I should. Maybe that's what TikTok is. You do TikTok, don't you? All right. Yes, which question? K project? I dug it. I really enjoyed it. And Fushimi is a great character. I thought there was more. I could have swore there was more coming. before COVID hit. I thought there was like another something. Um, or at least that's what somebody told me. There was another, either a film or an OVA or something that was supposed to come. Also, I feel like it left off with like, there's more to show as well. I would love to come back and do more of Kid Project. It's one of those ones where, you know, out of, like one person out of like a handful of people have seen it. But great character, cool story, great animation. But I do love the character. The character feels like an Isaiah type character. He's, you know, yeah, there's something about it. There's something more you want to find out about it, you know? So for sure, I would want to come back and do that as well. I'd like to come back for a lot of characters, actually. Not all, but a lot. Yes. Ichigo would definitely be one that I would want to do. Here's my concern. They haven't said anything to us yet. And they're announcing December 18th, you know? So this is one of those things where it's like, it's a big series, it's a big show. So it would not surprise me if they went off and got some named actor to go and voice the character of Ichigo. That wouldn't surprise me if they did something like that. I don't think that would be wise of them to do that, but they might, you know? And so I'm waiting to see what that announcement is on December 18th to be like, all right, I guess Brad Pitt can have the role. Yes?
First of all, I know you were talking about Crazy World earlier. That's one of my favorite songs on your album.
Really?
I love Crazy World.
Nice, all right.
Secondly, a couple of years ago, when you guys were first starting, your band all said at the time that you were comfortable releasing why you chose the name Play. Are you okay with that now?
It seems a little odd to say for me to, you know, and I'll say it, we're kind of a small group or whatever, you know, you guys aren't going to go out there and embarrass me, but I felt like with Eyeshine, right, it wasn't really, I was writing songs just because, I mean, I started the band to bring myself out of depression, you know, I just needed something else, and it worked for me. And it wasn't, again, and I've said this many times before, it wasn't like, this is our mission to write songs that are gonna make people happy. It wasn't really, but that's just what naturally kind of came out, like in a few of the songs. And over the years, we heard so many people say that they went through this thing, you know, or they lost a family member, and this song helped them. And so this whole album and this whole new music project, I am leaning more towards that. The issues, not only that other people are doing, but I deal with personally as well, with all the things that are going on. And so there is a focus in this and I'm not saying that we're an answer to any problem, but if at all the music can help you conquer your own giants, that's what we want it to be. So it's weird for me to say that, because I'm not saying that we are, but if there's any way that this could be something like that, I want that, you know, to be a thing. When I'm dead and gone, I want the music to be, you know, something that kind of maybe helps somebody at some point, even just one song, you know. So yeah, there's a bit more direction in this than with Eyeshine. It was like writing a bunch of random songs. There's a little more direction in this, for sure. All right. It feels weird to say it though out loud. Yes. What anime would I love to make? Wow. It's funny you should ask that, because I started my own production company when I did my film that none of you guys have seen yet. And we have done a couple other projects. We shot a Western, we shot this other little action piece, we shot a comedy thing, and we are starting to tinker with some. We're starting small. We're doing some like motion comics, and we're working on like a web series as well. So we're working on a couple of web comics as well. And with those, we're gonna do more than you would normally, I think, see in a web comic. We're scoring it. You know, we're also gonna see if we can add voiceover to it as well. So we're starting small there. We're going to see if that is a thing that people would be into. And we have a number of those already kind of in the works. We have one that is called Not Power Rangers, because we don't have an actual title for it yet. But we're working on it. We'll get there. But you know where we're leaning with this one. But it is not Power Rangers. But, you know, if you go like that, you go, oh, okay. So for sure, that's probably going to be one of our first ones. First official ones that we're doing. But we have a handful of them that we're going to do. We're just testing the waters, you know, because first off, they're very expensive to do, and there's really no return on it, you know. So it's like, people are into it, maybe we can make this a thing. So we just want to be creative. We want to start building more. We're trying to build out our team. You know, so if you're a writer, if you're, you know, if this is something you do or this is something you're passionate about and you want to be a voice actor, you should hit us up. Send us a demo. Send us a reel. We're not exactly at the place right now where we're going to, you know, be able to plug you in, but we will put your name on our Rolodex and be like, what do you have? What's your demo? What's your story? You know, you want to write? Well, here's our story. You want to write an episode? So we might start doing that at some point, you know, because we want to be, you know, dream makers and whatever. World conquerors. Sorry. Yeah. We just want to have fun. And we want to work with fun people. It's hard to work with people that are just the suits, you know, and it's all about the money and that kind of stuff. So it gets frustrating. Yes. All of them? Yeah, I like all of them. Top 3. What's your top 3? Okay. Yeah, I like those two. I don't know if I have a top anything. I have a top number, like a lot of them, you know. There's a bunch of them. Ichigo, of course, Hollow Ichigo, Lelouch, Izai is another one. Just kind of like Vash is another one. I can really just go throughout the list. You know, even Artemis, who's not like a huge role, but it's super fun to play. Giyu, he doesn't talk a whole lot, but he's a great character. You know, so the thing is, they're all from these very different worlds. Like in Naruto, I die probably, you know, over 20 times, right? But it's easier for me to say, like, Sasori is my favorite character out of the characters that I voiced in that. You know, for sure, Sasori is my favorite character. And then Ginma is another one, you know, and so then there's a few others. But yeah, so every world is very different. Now some roles give me a bit more to play with. You know, some of them are a lot longer, like Ichigo is a longer series for me, so it's a character that I can just like jump right into immediately. Nero from Devil May Cry, that series was another favorite of mine because I wasn't limited to the animation, because there was no animation, it was a script, and I got to make those choices. So if I wanted him to scream, cry, or hit the floor, or whatever, I just did those things. You know, and even physically, because I had the motion capture suit on. And so they're tracking my motion, so it was more of me doing it. And tracking my facial motion. And it was the first time I got to go to Japan ever, was when we worked on Devil May Cry 4. And then, of course, the other series. So it was like, there's a lot of like really cool firsts for that one. So that one definitely has more to it, you know. But, you know, it really depends on the character. If you look at my table or my banner, really, I just put like a lot of my favorites, but there's plenty more that are there. I just don't have the space for them. And then it wasn't until recently, like Fushimi, like from K stuff, I was like, how can I forget K project stuff? Nobody ever talks about it at my table. And so it was until just recently where I was like, I should put some Fushimi on the table because, you know, one person out of a couple people will know that character. And I love that. I love that I can relate to people in just a character in a world, you know? So I don't know. I like them all. It's hard to choose. People always say it's hard to choose your favorite child. And that used to be my answer forever. And it kind of still is. You know, it's hard for me. It really is hard to choose. Yes? What was it like? Flipping the coin from Adachi and Narukami? I didn't really have to flip a coin. when I first worked on Persona 4, who's played Persona 4? Okay. You should play it. It's pretty cool if you haven't played it. You've had your hand up for a long time, haven't you? You're just in a dark spot, though. It's like if you can see where you're at, you're in like kind of a shadow. So you're going to be next. Don't worry. All right, you'll be next. All right, so Persona 4, a great series. I only thought I was voicing Adachi. I didn't even know that I would be also voicing Narukami, so I didn't think about it. I was just like, hey, I'm just Adachi. So we recorded Adachi first. Towards the end of that session, they were like, hey, so now once we're done with Adachi, you're going to voice Narukami, the protagonist. And I was like, oh. And then, of course, I started to panic because I wasn't thinking about limiting my range or anything. And I was like, what does he sound like? Well, kind of the same tonal range as you. I was like, was it the same Japanese actor? No. And I was like, so it's a different character? Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. And then they could see, I guess, the panic in my eyes. They're like, but it's just, call-outs and shouts and stuff. And I was like, okay, so I'll just rough them up and put them down a little bit lower. And that's what I did. It worked. It was fine for the first game. But then, of course, more games came out, animation came out, and now I'm talking to myself. And so I had to separate the characters a little bit more, because when the characters right next to each other, if I didn't, then it'd be like, this sounds like the same dude talking to himself. And so I had to separate. And people were like, you forgot the voice. It's like, no, now I know what I'm doing. Now I know I'm voicing two characters, and I have to separate them. I would have done that initially in the beginning, but I didn't know that in the first game. So it wasn't like going back and forth. However, in the animation, there was a little bit of back and forth, because, again, we would just kind of go through and do any of the Adachi stuff, and then we'd go through with Narukami, because he, of course, had more lines in the animation. And then we would go back and listen to those scenes, and if something didn't feel right, I'd be like, let me pick that line up again. Let me adjust this one a little bit, just so we could separate them a little more. It was a little tricky, but it was fun. I love the series, though. I really do. Adachi was a lot of fun to play. And Narukami he just became a lot more fun, too, the more he had stuff to say. Yes. It better be good.
Oh, it is. All right, all your voices that you done.
Who's my favorite?
No.
Okay, all right. He's going to be upset.
All the characters you're gonna play, which one would you choose to run for president, and what would be your anime presidential goal?
Well, thanks for bringing politics into this. Who would I have out of all my characters run for president? Not Adachi. Gosh, yeah, right? It's got to be somebody that is trustworthy. It doesn't lie. It can't be Lelouch, right? That'd be scary. Yeah, right? It does have to be Vash, doesn't it? I feel like Vash would probably be the best. It's not something that he would want to do, though. He wouldn't want that role. But if we could force him to do it, it might be all right. Although he is a bit of a goofball, though. Would he tweet? That's what I wonder. Some people might think he's a bit of a womanizer. That might not be so good. Donuts thing is fine. Could be what? Yeah. Yeah, I think I might go with Vash. I'm gonna just go with Vash. And then what did you say after that? What was his, did you say campaign slogan or something?
Sorry.
Love and peace. For sure, yeah. It'd be pretty crazy, actually. Never happened. We're never, unfortunately, going to get anybody that we all like. Yes. Oh yeah, Danganronpa. It was awesome. It felt like Persona 4. It wasn't the same, but it had that same feeling afterwards. It's funny though, I didn't even know, because a lot of times when the games are top secret, so you don't really know what you're working on, and I feel like that one was just like DG2 or something, like they didn't have the full name, so I didn't really know what it was when I was working on it, but I knew it was like this mystery and all the stuff that we were doing, and we burned through that script pretty fast. It was maybe a one-day thing, maybe 2 days. It wasn't very long working on that project. And it wasn't until I was at a convention and somebody had the game and they slid it across the table and I looked at it and I was like, I don't recognize that name. And I was like, sorry, I'm not in that. And they're like, no, you are in this. I was like, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm in. They're like, oh, really? And they found it online and they're like, there's your name. And I was like, what's your name? Okay, all right. And then after that, I went home, I was like, what is that game? And I had to look it up, and then I realized, I was like, oh, it's that top secret game that, I didn't know the name of the title or whatnot. And so then I realized that's what it was. And then I was like, oh, so that's what everybody's dressed up on as, because they don't have the picture of the character or anything. It's just words. So I didn't see the character. I saw the character Hajime dressed up everywhere, and I was like, oh, so that's my character. And then I saw like Rantaro, and then I was like, oh, that's also my character. But how does that work out? But it was fun. Now, of course, the third one, I knew what I was getting into, because I was also like, but is it okay that I was in the other game? And they're like, yeah, just, change him up a little bit. Don't make him sound like the same character. And so I was like, okay, cool. And he's a different character anyways. He doesn't last that long. But he was also another fun character. But I love those. Those are pretty cool. I want to play them. I'm just terrible at games. I've been playing Zelda Breath of the Wild for over 3 years now, I think. You guys probably beat it in like one day, right? Are you still playing it? I'm trying to get all those stinking shrines. I think I found most of them. I just found the one where you like jump off the thing and you it's like in the side of the cliff or whatever. I found that one. I'm like, oh, that's easy. I was like, that one, no, people don't really know that one, but yeah, still playing that one. I need some cheat codes though. I don't want it to end though. That's what really it is. Because I've gone to the castle. I'm like, do I really want to fight him right now? I still like this world, and so I'm like, I still want to live in the world. See you later. And then I just go back and just keep running around. There's got to be more shrines. It's a fun game. Yes. Well, when it comes to Thousand Year Blood War, I know some things. I haven't read the manga completely. So I know some things just because people have told me. So I'm not really sure what to expect 100%. But really, I want to get more into Ichigo's mom and that side of things. That was what really kind of drew me in the very beginning. And I was like, well, what else is there about him, And so that's more the stuff I want to get into. Of course, seeing other people's bankais are going to be great, but I just want to get more into like the heart of the story, the soul. Where is this coming from? Like, who is he really? There's still all these kind of unanswered questions that I want to know. So those are the things I really want to see. And I know they've done this whole new thing with it. He's got kids now, or kid, and which felt very Naruto to me when I first heard it. I was like, wait, didn't they do that too? But it's continued now. So I'm like, okay, so there's another level of stuff that we might get to do. So I'm just excited to be, have that opportunity to be able to do it. Hopefully. I'll be very sad if I don't get to do it. Because it was a bittersweet ending, Who are you looking forward to? Bankai-wise. Yeah, see? Exactly. You're going to ask me that question. You can't even answer it? He's got it. All right. Hey, Reggie. It is a hard question, all right? Like Kenpachi has never done one, right? We haven't seen his yet, right? I always thought his would be the end of Bleach. You know, like he figures it out, and it's like everything goes black. Did you have a question? Yeah. Other, like, sorry, anime? Oh, that I'm not a part of? I mean, earlier on in my career, there were quite a few things where I was like, oh man, I want to be able to get into some Marvel stuff or Star Wars stuff. You know, I've since been able to do a little bit of that. But I kind of stopped doing that. Because you'll go and you audition for stuff, and then if you dwell on it afterwards, then you just get depressed, you know? So like you have to kind of develop this like attitude where you do your best for this audition, and if you get it, then you just continue doing that. But if not, then you move on to the next thing, you know? So I kind of stopped thinking that way. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to be a part of all sorts of things. I think the last time I thought anything like that was when people were like, Death Note was around, right? And that was like a thing, and I was like, that'd be kind of cool to do Death Note. But it was being done in Canada, so I was like, well, that's not gonna happen. So yeah, I don't really think that way. You know? Project that I rejected? No, there's nothing I rejected and regretted. There were a couple projects that I started working on, and then I was like, hey, I don't know if I'm right for this role. But half the time I ended up continuing on that role. And the problem is sometimes when you first start working on a series, for example, you kind of like, you come in there knowing what the character is, or getting a sense of this character, and then feeling like, well, this is where I think I want to play this character, which is really comfortable for me to play, and I feel like I can deliver a great performance here. But then you have multiple producers and writers and all these other people that are trying to put in what they want to see out of the character. And then you try to like work with them to find this place and then where it all blends together. And sometimes, not always, but occasionally it's like, I'm not doing what you want me to do, so this is clearly not a role I should take on. And so that's happened a couple of times. But then they're like, no, we're just trying to find the character. It's like, it sounds like I'm not right for the character though, you know? And there's been a couple like, but it's like things like this. You know, in anime, you'll hear this, some people call it a 102, where it's like, you've heard that. It's like an out, in, right? So I had to do that on this show 40 times. I started counting, because I was noticing that every line that I was doing was like 8 lines at least before they like accepted it or whatever. And then even then it felt like they were just like, all right, we'll go with this one. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'm not really, you know, usually it's like a couple times and then you're like, that's perfect, you got it, all right, let's go. But it was like to stop and start every single line, so it felt like I'm not really able to play this character. I'm not able to really dive into it because like I have to stop and restart every single time. So I started counting. So I had to go 40 times. I'm like, after 40 times, it's like, guys, I've done this 40 times. It kind of seems ridiculous to me. I don't think anyone's going to stop this, you know, DVD and go, hey, did you hear how Johnny did that? How ridiculous was that? And I was really upset. I was like, if you guys don't think I'm doing what you want, out of these 40 times you can't find one of these, then I really don't need to be here because it's really making me feel terrible, you know, like I'm not delivering. And they're like, oh, no, let's keep going. So I'm like, all right, I need a break, but, you know, we'll come back to it. And then we kept going, and then I had to say, what? I had to say what? 22 times. Just what? Just the word what? And I lost it. I was like, how many other ways can I say what than 22 times? You know, I've said it 22 different times, and there's not one of these that you think is going to work. Obviously, I'm not right for this role. Oh, no. And then I ended up finding out that one of the producers one of the producers didn't like the director so much. And so that's what was really going on. But I was feeling that, You know, I'm like, hang on a second. So you're like, I'm feeling the punishment though. You know, it's like you're trying to punish this director because you don't like them. You know, I've worked with this director many times and it's been fine. And so I was like, okay, that's a weird situation. But anyways, that's one. I could tell you another time, and it's also another time where it was like kind of ridiculous. It's been a while. Let me see if I remember the story. Yeah, all right. So I don't remember. It was a game, and we had two producers, which usually you'll have a producer in, you know. And then we had a director that I've worked with many times before, and it was kind of the same situation where I would deliver the line where I thought was right, and then they would want an alt. I would do another alt, and then I'd see them discussing, and then one of the producers would, but instead of at first the director would really doesn't like me. One of the directors would chime in, the director would chime in and have something to say, but at some point he just stopped, you know, and it was these producers that would just start chiming in. And so the producers would then give me a line read, and then I started feeling like a puppet, you know, I'm like, well, I'm not even acting anymore, I'm just doing exactly what you are saying. And half the time I was like, it's a lot like my first read, you know, but I'm like, all right, well, we'll just keep going. But I was just feeling defeated, you know, like if people are telling you over and over and making you feel like you're not getting it right, you're like, boy, I don't feel like this is right for me. And they're like, no, I think it sounds fine, we're getting there. And I'm like, yeah, but this is hard, you know, and I want to have fun with this character. It's come across my table a few times too, and I'm like, boy, if only you knew the trouble I went through for this. I don't remember what the line was, but it was like maybe 5 words, it was a sentence. So I delivered the line the way I thought it should be done, and then I gave them an alt, and I see them discussing, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. And then one of the producers went in and said, can you make that line sound a little happy? And I was like, okay, sure, so I'm gonna put a little smile on it. So I said the line again, and kind of a little happy. And then I see them talking, and then the other producers, do you know what, actually, can you make that line sound sad? And I'm like, wait a second, that's completely opposite. I'm like, all right, so since I start thinking, hey, maybe it's just you guys, you know, don't know what you want. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll say it's sad. So I gave a little bit of a sad tone to it. And then I see them talking, and then I'm like, what is it now? And then they come back on, okay, you know what, actually what we want to hear is something that sounds a little happy sad. And I was like, wait a second. So with these 5 words, you want to hear happy sad in that? They're like, yeah, straight face. Yeah, that's what we want. I was like, happy sad. And then they're like, yeah. And then I looked at the director and he was like, you know, and I was like, okay, it's you guys. It's you guys, it's not me. So I look at it, I'm like, all right, sure, I'll give you happy sad. And I didn't. I didn't give them happy sad. I went back to my very first read. And I gave them my very first read, and they were like, perfect. And I was like, okay, you guys are guys. So, anyways, it's a long story. But, you know, you run into that every once in a while. It's rare. It's a lot more rare now. But that used to happen quite a bit, actually, in the beginning. Yes? Did you have a question? Oh, yes.
Earlier you mentioned something about doing webcomics. Do you know what app you're going to be working on for doing webcomics?
At the moment, no. We can't, we have our eyes on a couple places, but we're going to put it together first. We're going to probably put together like, it's interesting how it works, you know, you do like, I guess it's like 5 episodes, it's called like a pilot. So we'll probably do that first, and we will most likely put like the first, whatever, episode on our site. And just to see, hey, are you guys, go check out our webtoon, is this something you guys are into, do you guys like it? And then we might then go take it, you know, if we generate anything off of that. But then there's also the possibility, if we have enough of them done, if the offer sounds good enough for us, you know, and there's not a whole lot of money in it to begin with, but even just breaking even would be great. And to be on a certain site, of course. Probably the site that you're thinking of. So, you know, there's a possibility of that, but we want to, first we got to really kind of work out the story. You have to work out the story far in advance, you know, because once you start going, then it's like, well, you got to keep on going. So you have to have basically your first season done, and then some ideas of what that second season is. And so we kind of already have that built, but we need to get all the finer details. And, you know, we also need to find the right artist. We're still looking for the right artist. So if you're an artist, there's also that. We're just trying to make jobs. Yes, Isaiah, and then we'll get you in the back. Isaiah? Isaiah for sure is one I really enjoy, but yeah, 100%. I think you'd all punch him in the face. And behind, yes. Some of the Bleach I did get into. I didn't read all of it, but I started to look at a few of them, but then I was like, I don't want to know too much, because I was hoping that we were going to get back into it, which maybe we are. But no, there are some other ones that I've read that, there's one called Abara, Abara, which I've never, like I've worked on other anime that he's done, but that one I dig. I really like it. It's like weird and dark. And it's pretty cool. But it's one of those earlier ones that I don't think will ever see the light of day. But there are a few things like there's been some from Korea a long time ago that I started getting into, but then they ended. You know. That's the other bummer about them is like the manga, who knows what's going to happen. You start getting into it, and then it's like, well, that's the end of it. There's no more, but I really like this. I've already spent $300 on all these darn books, and now what, you know? Those things are expensive now, aren't they? My daughter, like I said, is really into Demon Slayer, and she wanted some of the manga. Man, it's hard to find them, you know, first off. And then when you do find them, it's like, well, that's a lot. That's a lot of manga. It's like, are you going to read these? She would. But I just want it to be something that I'm really in. I want her to like me. It's funny. Yes. Yeah. I think it depends on many different things. I think sometimes it's budget. You know, if they have enough money, if they already know that, like if it's a new manga or whatever, right? But it's like popular. You know, they'll spend a certain amount of money and then go in there, but then they don't know if they're going to continue after that first season, and so they write a different ending. You know, Blue Exorcist is one of those. You know, but then they were like, oh, people actually liked it. And so then they were like, then they had to try to fix the things that they did in the second one, which is always kind of weird. So it's really multiple different reasons. You know, sometimes the creator has a bit more say in it, you know, not a lot of times, but they'll have a bit more say, you know, and sometimes the producer just wants to stay true to that, you know. And then there are times when they start working on it, and then they've caught up to the manga, and then they're like, well, we need to have more anime. Let's make up a whole new story arc, and then they do that, which usually people aren't into, you know? And so there's multiple different reasons. Not usually. They're not usually in there, no. But the original director sometimes is, you know? Or at least has a lot of specific notes. Like when I started working on Code Geass, there were a lot of specific notes from the Japanese director. When I worked on Akira, there were a lot of specific notes from the, because I worked on the Pioneer dub, you know, so there was another dub that's, well, they call it the streamlined dub, but I don't think that's accurate. But there was another dub that was like 80s, 89 or something like that. And so because of the time or whatever, certain things didn't translate the way that the original director wanted, you know, and then they just adapted it however they wanted to. And then so with our dub, he was very specific. No, please try to keep it true to the original translation as much as you can to make sense of certain things. And there were a lot of things that I didn't understand, and maybe it was just because I was younger when I had seen it. For instance, when Kaneda, you know, crashes his friend's bike and burns it, you know. At first, like when I first watched it, I was like, why did he ruin a perfectly good motorcycle? It didn't make sense to me. But then when we did ours, it wasn't like we fully explained it, but there's a little more hint to it. Whereas like in that culture, you burn things of those people, like items, right? Some things that they like, so that they can have it in the afterlife. And so that concept made more sense to me the second time around. And that was because we, I guess, stayed a little more true to the concept, or the translation. So there's some of that. It's really kind of a mix. It's like everything, really, that could happen, has happened, you know, and probably will continue to happen. Hopefully they, you know, a lot of times if they stick to a manga, then it's what people are used to, and it's also probably going to be a better choice. But, you know, you never know. Yeah. Sometimes the anime comes first, and then they do the manga afterwards. Yeah. I try to do a lot of research into the characters before I start. And that was definitely one of the ones where there was a lot of information out there for me to be able to look it up. In fact, I was able to watch 60 episodes on YouTube. And so I was just into it, you know. And now it took me about 10 episodes to really understand who the character was and truly get into it. And then and I don't remember which episode it was, but there's an episode that he was kind of had this heartfelt moment about his mom. You know, and then I was like, oh man, I can relate to that emotion. And there's like throughout, there were like certain scenes that I was like, I can relate to that, or I can find myself there. And so then I was able to just like kind of plug into the character, and I felt like the character. So that, and then again, it's like a long running series. So that's again just one where I know I could just, like if we were going to work on it today, I could just go in there and I could be Ichigo, you know, without too much trouble. Now, it has been a long time, you know, and so like when we were working on it then, I had a lot of trust from the studio and all that, like, and I was able to ad-lib here and there. We were able to just kind of like do our thing. So I don't know if we ended up doing that, if they're gonna kind of go back and like change that and have more control over what's being done, or if I'll still have that kind of freedom if we ended up doing it. So that I don't know. That's another thing that I wonder, or I'm curious about. Oftentimes though, like even coming back to do Lelouch or Vash, now that was with Funimation, and they just trusted me with the character. It was like, this is a character you know, right? I'm like, yeah, you know. But I also watched a bit of it before going into it, just so I could remember, especially Vash, you know. And then Lelouch, the ending of the second season, I was like, well, what are you guys doing here? Because I don't remember there anything more for us to go off of. So, you know, I guess. I don't know if I explained that well. Okay. Yes. We only got a couple more minutes here. But yes. How much? What was it like for Devil? I heard Devil May Cry. How was it like working on? Oh, the voice acting. Well, I mentioned this earlier. That project. I got to go to Japan to do the motion capture. So I did all the motion for the character first, right? The facial capture, which was great. It was the first time I got to go to Japan. First time I got to do motion capture, and it was a script. So it wasn't already animated. You know, like somebody else didn't do it. I did. And then I got to see the things that I was as the character, and then I got to dub over my own voiceover recording. Like they recorded my voice when we were on stage doing all the stuff, you know. So it was basically me just doing exactly what I did in Japan like a couple of years earlier. So it was cool. It was interesting. It's a fun experience, you know, it really was. Like that was, I'll say this about that, that made this probably one of my favorite roles, is not only because I wasn't limited to pictures, I had the freedom to make my choices, but the director trusted me to make those choices. And I've said this other times before, but I remember struggling with it, with that first script in Devil May Cry 4, because I knew the character of Dante, and I was like, this feels like Dante, and I remember telling him, Yuji, I was like, I'm not sure, it sometimes feels like, you know, Dante, and I want to take it a certain way and different, and then he stopped me, he was like, Johnny, you are Nero, and then he walked away, and I was like, okay. At first I was like, well, what is that supposed to mean? But then I was like, oh, you know what, I should just make the choices that feel right. And so I just did, you know, and so I did that in Devil May Cry 4. But the other thing is the script. We got to ad-lib and adjust lines left and right. There's a lot of freedom in that. Again, they just like trusted the choices. We just have to say, this is what I'm saying, this is why I want to say it. And then the same thing with Devil May Cry 4. I feel like at least 90% of my lines I changed from the original script. The script wasn't terrible, and it had gone through a couple different writers who were pretty good, but they didn't fully understand the character like I understood the character. And so, again, Yuji and the other producers, they just trusted us with our characters, and which was great, because it felt good, because it was like, well, this is what I think I would say as this character. You know, not saying I totally changed every single line, but I did change quite a bit to make it more natural for what I felt the character would say at that time. You know, situations I didn't really change. There were a couple times where we got to ad-lib more that was in the script. You know, it was just fun. Yeah, it was really cool. But then again, it's the same thing going into voiceover. For that, it was something I did a couple of years earlier, and I just, you know, I got to see it up there. But this time I was in an orange suit instead of a black and blue one. It's a lot of fun. You got a follow-up? Yeah. Yeah, oh, the fifth? Yeah, for sure. The fifth one is the same sort of situation. Got to, you know, yeah, just the same thing I said. Got to ad-lib and adjust the lines, you know, and make, we all did. We have to make them right for our characters. So one thing I will say is that Ruben, who is Dante, and Dan Southworth, who is Virgil, are exactly those characters. They bicker and fight like brothers. They do, and it's funny to watch. And man, they're both the crack up. They really are. They're great people. I love them both. But they're super fun to be around. But just to watch them be who they are around each other, it's like, man, they're exactly those characters. There's no one else that I know that could play those characters like they can, especially the relationship, because their relationship is like that. They annoy each other sometimes, and it's very funny to watch. But they get along really well too. It's kind of fun. You have a follow-up? Another follow-up? Yes. I don't know. I wish there was another one happening, but I don't know. I feel like they're probably going to do the animation, you know, which I think is going to really be amazing. Adi Shankar is doing it, and I love his stuff, you know. He let me kind of read through some of the outlines that he had for the story, and if they get to do what his idea is, it's pretty amazing. And I think it's going to rejuvenate the franchise for sure. And you know, if all goes well, then, you know, a couple seasons down the line, maybe you'll get to see Nero. But it's certainly going to be, you know, about the brothers and that, which is, you know, going to be really fun. But who knows? You know. He's brilliant. His storytelling is amazing. You guys are going to do whatever he decides to do. Yeah, back there. How old are you?
23.
Yes. It does depend on your age. I would recommend it, yeah, for sure. Now, some people got more into Devil May Cry 5 because I think 4 was a totally different gameplay from 3. And so that kind of threw some people off. And also was like introducing a new character, and they only hinted at who he was. So you could probably just, you know, if you don't want to play 4, you can watch all the cinema, whatever stuff on YouTube. But Five is pretty fun. But it depends also if you're, like I would not be able to beat the game at any level because I'm terrible at games. So all I did was watch the cinematics. All right, I think I have a couple more before they do. I literally have time for one more question. Who has not asked a question that wants to ask a question? Who has a good question that's asked a question? Is it a good one? All right. If I could do an adult R-rated Power Rangers, would I? What do you mean by adult? Yeah, well, okay, well, the thing that I'm working on, the not Power Rangers web series, is a little more adult. It's not like completely adult, but it's a little darker. I'm not opposed to something like that, not at all. And I think that, now it does change quite a bit from what we had done on the series, but now that a lot of you are grown up, maybe that might be appealing. Did you ever watch Daddy Shankar's Power Rangers? He's the one that did Power Rangers, that one that was like on YouTube, the dark one. It was interesting. It was. I thought it was very interesting and a really dark take on it. I don't think we need to go that dark, but it would be kind of cool to get a little darker, a little more, how dark do you want it to get? I don't know if it needs to be R. I think it could be Avengers-ish, rating-wise, I think. Not that it has to be Avengers-ish. I feel like that's what they tried to do with the last one. With the suits, I didn't like, the last one was okay. I thought all the actors were great, but, I felt like the Zords were weird. I felt like the suits weren't as clearly defined from one from the other. They just had a different color. There wasn't enough martial arts action in there. I felt like they made the Pink Ranger a jerk. They really went for the teenagers with attitude. There was more teenagers that were douchebags than with attitude. So it was a little different. Did you watch? You watched the movie, right? I'm assuming. I thought it was interesting. I was entertained, but it was, was, and then, when it came time to say it's Morphin' time, I was like, it's Morphin' time. It's like, I don't know if anybody would watch the show if we were like, it's Morphin' time. You guys are, you little kids, you want to watch a show and I'm going to get there and turn it into a superhero, and I'm like, it's Morphin' time. It's not that exciting, right? It would be exciting for kids. Hey, thank you guys for being here. Polo's going to be doing his DJ set at 9:30-ish. I think you're going up first, right? And then Polo's going to be up there, and then I'll be around tomorrow. I'll be at the tables at noon, and then the screening tomorrow. So thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.